ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country and around the world, and especially inside of Afghanistan right now, I am bringing you a very urgent, important, and I know will be inspiring conversation with a woman that I really, truly admire at the deepest level. She's a friend. She's been a great counsel to me, a mentor in more ways than she understands, and I think, a true American hero, a true American badass, and just someone I'm so thankful to know. The great and powerful Jane Horton finally joins me on Independent Americans. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Thanks for making me smile today.
You got it. You've made me smile a lot over the years. And I think the first time we ever met, Jane, was outside of a Capitol Hill building. Was that it? You tell me, because I know you'll know, because you remember.
Actually, I forgot about that, but I think I emailed you a couple times. And, when you're in DC, when you don't know who someone is, you'll be like, okay, well, let me do some research on them. And then I saw you and I was like, hey, I'm the girl who emailed you. You can't hide now.
Yes, it was a very good and effective ambush, but a good one. And I think it like in that moment, I was obviously moved by you, but it's something you've been really good at over decades now, of like finding people of influence and power, including presidents, and getting them in front of you and making them listen to what they need to hear. I mean, I think, Jane, you're better at it than almost anybody I've known. And it's really moved a lot of policy, people, conversations. And there's a lot to get into. Obviously, it's a very emotional time for our community, for you, for many in this country. So I want to start by asking you, Jane, I ask everybody, where are you and how are you? So Jane, where are you and how are you?
I'm broken today. So it's taken me back to days that I never thought I'd go back to, places I never thought I'd see again in this lifetime. And I know our whole community is deeply hurting in our country and the world and Afghanistan. So, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak out. I'm humbled for the opportunity to be an American, but we have a lot of work ahead of us.
I'm thankful for your candor and your time. We don't have a lot of time because you've got a hard stop and many important things to do. But can you maybe start, Jane, by telling me, this is a really hard day for many folks, but probably for you uniquely, as Afghanistan is crumbling. People are experiencing it in different ways. And I want to get to your work as one of the most powerful advocates for Gold Star families and the bigger picture of the people you often speak on behalf of. But for you, what's the last couple of days been like? What's your inbox look like? What's your phone look like?
I haven't been this busy. My inbox hasn't looked this way since my husband died. It's literally been, I can't even count, I've gotten probably over 1,000 calls and text messages about getting people out of Afghanistan, or service members with their interpreters on the ground. I have friends on the ground that are in vulnerable situations that I'm having to help them make life or death situations that I'm not qualified to make, but I'm the only person they have. I've gotten probably 70 to 100 messages from Gold Star families. It's the same message from everyone. Completely brokenness. And something that I don't want to admit, but has to be said, is we need to know that our loved ones and our tears and our sacrifice and their blood wasn't for nothing. And so it's been horrific, but it's also one of those times when, what it looks like is the movie Pearl Harbor, in a way, once the attack happens and all the bloody people are rushing towards one of the main characters, and she doesn't know, who do I help? Who do I help? And she's overtired. And so I know it's been like that for our whole community.
But you are in a unique position because you've been out in front, you've been public, you've been selfless, you've worked inside government, outside of government, you've worked overseas, you've worked here at home. But can you talk, Jane? I don't want to tell your story because you're so good at telling it. We're coming up, I know, on the anniversary of the day that Chris was killed, I believe, September 9th, right?
Yes, sir. 10 years this year.
Can you share with our audience, in whatever way you feel is appropriate and best, how did you get to the point here where people are calling on you, and what led you to this moment where you are helping so many others?
You know, knocking on doors, being a public advocate, loving people, you know, I just want to help people. I understand pain. And if I can do one little thing to help people take away their pain, it's the greatest honor of my life. But, after my husband was killed, I started moving. I moved to DC about a year later. I started knocking on doors, asking members of Congress, do you know what happens after someone's killed? Do you know what happens after the knock at the door, the casualty process? Little to no one really knew what happens. And there's a lot of issues that we can make better for families that have already been through unimaginable. So I've worked in DC now for almost 9 years trying to write policy, advocate to the Pentagon. I've written several policies, written several laws, created a program last year I might not have even been able to tell you about yet, but a Gold Star Fellowship that's named after my husband and another fallen soldier, Sergeant First Class Shane Cooley, to give Gold Star families a paid fellowship on Capitol Hill for their member of Congress or in the district. So doing things to empower families, give them a voice, because people need to hear from us. This stuff is real. We're real people. We want to engage in America, and we want to be able to, the best way to honor the fallen is to live the best life possible. And is to do something for the country that they're willing to fight, bleed, and die for. And so I've been doing that. I also worked and went to Afghanistan with General Dunford for the first time in 2016 as a special assistant. Have been 5 times since then, so 6 times total. I've done some work with the Afghans, done work with Afghan widows and orphans on the ground, helped try to bring our country and Afghanistan closer in many ways, and also bring healing to veterans through all the good that was done and all the women that were getting educated in positions of government. Afghanistan had more women in parliament than we have in Congress. All the little girls that are being educated. So it's just so many different things, so many different, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to say death because obviously I know what death is like, but it's death. So.
Jane, I have these images of you over, the last decade, in Afghanistan, on television, in Capitol Hill, but there were moments during presidential debates. There were moments during elections when I would send you some of the IAVA policy sections and say, Jane, rip it apart, tell us what we're missing, and you would add that perspective and that expertise. But you were also great at, frankly, cornering people in power. And even like making sure during debates, I think maybe your name was mentioned before, but like both parties. But I remember, you cornering Ted Cruz, and I see you, getting in front of Donald Trump, and you got in front of these people knowing that they would potentially be in a position to make huge policy changes. Can you talk about, you kind of had I don't want to say a rap, but like you had a message, and it was consistent when you got in front of these people, and eventually Trump brought you into the administration and you did some good inside. What did you tell them when you got in front of them?
I told them that most of my generation is at home being mom and dad to their kids. We've been through unfathomable loss, and many of them you're not going to hear from because they can't handle it. So I'm going to speak on behalf of them. Some of the administrative programs we have got to be fixed. It takes families a long time to get a hold of people at different government organizations. It's hard to find out what their benefits are. So I would just tell them, once you get into power, I just want you to remember there's this group of people that the nation reveres and they care about, but oftentimes, almost always, they forget that there has to be policy behind it. Like, we can say we care about veterans all day long, but there's a whole agency, and we're actually in their motto of the Department of Veterans Affairs, to care for those who have borne the battle, the widow and the orphan. And so we often get left out, if not always. It's gotten better throughout the years, throughout speeches, policies. There's people fighting now for us, but just remembering that, yes, I know the country cares about us, but there has to be policy to back that up. And there's families that are hurting. And please don't forget about us.
Jane, how old were you when Chris was killed?
25.
So you were 25, and you've described in great detail, how your life was turned upside down forever. But ever since then, you've been carrying on Chris's legacy, I think, in an incredible way. You now, are a voice for so many other people who've gone through that. I don't speak for all veterans, and I'm always careful about that, but I have a feel, right, for what's going on, and I have a lot of inputs. I hear from a lot of people. You're at the forefront for Gold Star families, people who've lost someone in combat since 9/11. This is unique for them, and I don't see them on TV right now, and often when they are, it's politicized, and the Democrats would have theirs and the Republicans would have theirs, right? But take us inside your community as a voice for that community and tell us what you think people need to know about what Gold Star families are experiencing right now.
What an honor to be a voice for them, and may I be worthy to be that. So, it's brokenness. We're broken, we're scared. The little bit that we held on to, that, Afghan women and children were thriving. I got a letter from a fiance that lost her fiance on the ground in Afghanistan. And in the letter he wrote her, if he were to die, he said, if I could give my life for one Afghan child to have a better life, it's worth it. And yeah, nonstop texts like that, nonstop letters. People are like, what's happening? We're so confused. Is my loved one's legacy worth it? And we're just horrified that our loved ones' lives, who wanted nothing more than to serve and defend this beautiful nation of different people, of people that believe this or believe that. But as a nation, that's what makes us unique, is that you can believe something, Paul, and I could believe something, but we can talk about it as Americans and we can learn from each other, and we've lost that. And so for us, we just want to know that it was worth something. And we're just worried about this country that our loved ones gave their lives for, and our hearts are completely shattered for the people of Afghanistan.
Jane, I've talked a lot in the media in the last week, as I know you have and will. I've been trying to explain to people this isn't just about the last 20 years and about whether we stay in Afghanistan or whether we don't. It's about the moral imperative of yanking the rug out from under people that were our friends and our allies and leaving them to die. Right?
Yes.
I think most Americans thought we should have gotten out. Many veterans think we should have gotten out. The question is how we get out. And we didn't have to get out like this. And I want you to help people understand, for the people who say, if we stayed for 20 years, we stay for 21 years. I've made the case, if you stayed for 21 years, maybe you got 100,000 people out and then you got out, right? It didn't have to all go down in flames like this. Can you, in your words, explain what you want people to understand about this now? It's political. It's by nature political. We need the president to do things. What do you want them to understand about what's happening on the ground? And frankly, what do you want Joe Biden to do? I hope he calls you. I don't know if he will. What do you want people to understand? What do you want Joe Biden to do?
Obviously this is deeply personal to me. We all know that. We all can see that. But as a former national security professional, or a current one, this is way more dire than people think. This is really affecting America in many levels. It's the international community. This looks so bad. And to back up real quick on your question, this is not anymore about what we should have done even. This is what are we going to do going forward? Because we as a country have got to do something to fix this. So all these debates about what shoulda, coulda, woulda happened, first of all, they're deeply painful to us, because it's always, well, we should have got out of there after Osama bin Laden was killed. Well, most of our loved ones were killed, not most of them, but a lot of the ones that I'm close to, our loved ones were killed after that, including one whose husband was the last one killed in Afghanistan 2 days after we signed the peace agreement with the Taliban. So it's deeply painful for us, but this has so many implications for our country as a whole, for the troops on the ground that have spent years working with Afghans, for all of our, special forces that work closely with the Afghans that are calling desperately to get help for people that are calling them screaming, I'm going to get killed. We have to move forward, and we have to find out what we're going to do to fix it. And I hope we get to the bottom of what happened, but we can do that after we focus on the troops on the ground right now, the Afghans that are waiting to find out if they're going to live or die, and just the whole situation overall. As for what I want the president to do, our nation, wrap his arms around the military community. My heart is so broken for them, and service members and people that have deployed so many times. And it's not about just the fallen. It's about people that have left their sons and daughters, and they don't recognize their mom or their dad because they've been gone for years fighting this war that unraveled in a couple days. And so this is, in my opinion, this is what happens when the country is so divided. united we prosper, divided we fall. And I know this is cheesy, but I hope we can come together like we did on 9/11 for 9/11 this year. And I will say that it's also extra significant to me because that's the day 10 years ago that I went to get my husband's body from Dover on 9/11. And so I just hope that we can find out what we can do. We can work together as a country and across, I hope Democrats and Republicans and independents and everyone in between can come together to work on this dire situation that is making us look horrible to the world and is hurting and killing and ripping apart lives of a lot of people, and see what we can do to mend it, and also wrap our arms around the military community because they're not okay. I've never seen anything like this.
That's part of why I wanted to have you on, to ring that bell. And when we know, there are people who are way out in front, and I explained it to my wife today. I said, they're hurting bad. And to dedicate your life to this for so long and have it go like this, you just can't make sense of it. There's so much anger and emotion and overflow. And I know you're doing, as you always do, a brilliant job of channeling it and focusing it and looking at the future. But I assume you've met Joe Biden before. You've met almost everybody in Washington of influence and power. How did he miss this, Jane? Like, I expected him to understand it. Bo had been there, in Iraq. He was the first Blue Star family member we've had since 9/11. I thought he was going to get this. So how did he miss it? And can we have hope that he will come around and that they will get their shit together and make this right?
So the beauty of America and why I'm in love with my country is because we do have a voice as Americans. And so what people don't understand about politics is people do listen. And whichever way the country thinks is where politicians go. And people didn't care about Afghanistan. I know you call it Forgotistan, which every time, I know you're speaking truth, every time a dagger to the heart. Because we should have talked about this years ago when we had men and women willing to fight, bleed, and die for us during an all volunteer force that were there for no other reason because they loved us and they loved their country. So yeah, moving forward, I just think that people need to realize that we do have a say in America, and politicians do listen to what the country thinks, and people wanted out and they did not care. So I think they thought we could just get out and nobody would even notice and nobody would care. And so here we are with this, with our new friends, the Taliban, which is me being sarcastic for people that don't know me. Our troops on the ground, people at the airport that can't get there, they're not letting women and children get to the airport. I'm hearing that there's all kinds of issues on the ground. People are so scared, but we as a nation do have a voice. And so I encourage everyone to have your voices heard. Speak out if you're a veteran, Gold Star family member, service member. Write down your thoughts and your feelings because they matter. They're important. Your service and your sacrifice matters, and people need to hear. Because I know it's an honor to be part of the 1% that defends this nation, but also they need to know that while they're at the mall, we're fighting and we're willing to, bleed. We're willing to die. And I say that as someone that didn't serve. I'm speaking on behalf of my husband, which I will. But also, we have to pay attention to that. It's not fair that people don't pay attention while people are fight, bleeding, and dying for them. And so that's what I would say.
Jane, you have been serving in ways that are incomprehensible. And I think you've served, for those of us who've worn the uniform, we look at you in awe because you've served so many times over in so many ways when you didn't have to, and you've continued to sacrifice. And I've said this before, every time you tell your story and you tell Chris's story, it hurts. I know that. And I thank you for enduring that. Let me ask you to put one last point on it, and I've got to let you go. For people to say, okay, I'm going to put pressure. I've tweeted, what more can I do? Organizations they can support, money they can donate. If they say, I want to do more, where would you direct them now for the people who do want to help?
Sorry, Paul. I think organizations are amazing, and we have such incredible people like you that have started organizations that have made such an impact. But I also think because there are so many, people always want to go to an organization when I say, this is the time to go to someone and you need to find someone, a neighbor. Do not ask them what they need. Nobody has any clue what they need. I just had a wonderful friend reach out yesterday, and she's like, I'm delivering dinner tomorrow. And I was like, that's really nice. Just do something. Take the kids, bring the kids something, go over and talk, bring dinner, but actually find someone, or if you know someone, they're going to tell you they're fine.
Mm.
Most people aren't going to admit they're not okay, but I'm telling you, they are not okay. So I ask you to reach out to your communities, do something for people. I just say wrap your arms around the country, wrap your arms around the military veterans community, Gold Star community right now. And yes, look for good organizations, but people need real live people. And yes, all these crisis lines we have are wonderful, but if you know someone, people also need to know that their neighbors care and that Americans care. So America needs to do that right now.
That is such good advice, and I knew it would be. You are a true American hero. I'm hearing from Vietnam vets who are telling me that this is triggering for them
Yep.
because of Saigon. And I heard from World War II vets who told me that 9/11 was triggering for them because they experienced kamikazes. So I want people to understand it's all generations. It's not just people of our generation. We've got
Yep.
to wrap our arms around it. And Jane, you are a conscience for America. I wish you would run for office, and I know you won't. But you are an incredible human being. I love you. My family loves you. I hope you'll come back when you have more time. But until then, thank you for all that you're doing. Know that we appreciate you and we love you, and that every day you're changing and saving lives. And I can't thank you enough for being here with me today to share your thoughts.
Thanks for your kindness, Paul. It made my day, and it filled me with the confidence I need and the strength I need to keep pushing forward, because the country needs to hear from me and you. And may I be worthy of your words. And I will spend the rest of my life earning them.
Mm. You're going to get a lot more love after I post this. So everybody show love to Jane, wrap your arms around her, and listen to her, right? Do what she says. She used to hand out a lot of bracelets, but oftentimes we say, what would Jane Horton do? That's been a great,
Wow.
it has been a great azimuth for me and many others. We'll let you go. Jane Horton, the great and powerful Jane Horton. Thank you for all that you do, my friend. And please stay vigilant.
Thanks. Thanks, Paul.